The question is, can you learn to produce music in less than 24 hours? And I think that the answer is yes. See, my goal is to be like the Chef Gusteau of music. He said,
anyone can cook.
So I'm saying, anyone can make music. Even if you've never made music a day in your life, I promise if you watch this video all the way through, you're gonna learn exactly how to produce your first song. Oh crap! So today we're gonna be working in Ableton and we're gonna make a lo-fi song because I think it's easy to understand and a great first place to start.
24 hours. You've got 24 hours.
Go to sleep. Like, sleep first. So before we start, before we go hog wild, I think it's really important as a songwriter that you choose a theme or some sort of overall message for your song. So I'm going to simply title this song Forgive, and I'm going to write it pulling creatively from moments I had to forgive other people or when I've had to ask others for forgiveness as well. I'm going to set the tempo to 80 and the time signature to 4/4 because that's very typical for a lo-fi beat. Even if you know nothing about music theory, it is super simple to write chords because you can play them on your MIDI keyboard or you can simply draw them in using your mouse. Make sure your track is record enabled. That's this little button right here. That's going to turn red. And then we're going to hit record up top and you're going to hear the metronome start clicking. So I'm now going to click on what we just recorded and it's going to pull up this little track down below. I really like that, but I noticed that this third chord is actually sounding a little bit weak. So I think it's because I only have 3 notes in this chord. I'm going to drag in a custom note here. Let's just mess around until we find one that we like. Okay, so I landed on just doubling that E, but the one that's in the bass, I'm going to drag that velocity down because I don't want it to be too loud. So let's try that. And that sounds pretty good. The last thing I want to do is see if I can get a note to sustain through all of them, because that's going to add some tension. Ooh, okay. Ooh, okay, we're kind of cooking. Now that we have our main progression, we're gonna find a piano sound that we really like. And sound selection, I think, is the most important part of creating a song, because if you know what your goals are creatively, what your message is with the song, it's gonna allow you to choose which sounds support that narrative. There's a lot of instruments in Ableton, so really, I'm gonna go pretty much one by one until I find one that I like. I really like the way that sounds, but I'm gonna do a little trick. So I'm gonna take this track and hit Command D to duplicate it. This is going to allow us to save what we just found, and I'm gonna search for a new sound. Nice, okay, so now I'm gonna have both sounds playing, and I'm gonna try and get a good balance between the two. I'm gonna put EQ8 and I'm gonna put a reverb on it as well. Okay, see that's already sounding way better. Mixing with the dry wet knob is also going to allow us to create a lot of space. So this piano is gonna sound like it's really far away. Okay, let's go ahead and add in the bass. I'm gonna use a free plugin called Knee Bass, and it sounds like this. You can't go wrong with this thing. I'm actually just gonna start with our root note, which is F, and then I'm just gonna draw in the bass. So I'm gonna listen along and choose the notes that I think sound best. Cool, okay, I have 4 notes that I like here, but I think the second note could use some variance. So let's maybe add in another one where it goes down. That's pretty cool, so let's hear that. And that'd be cool if it kind of followed our piano line, that da-da. Woo, okay, that sounded fire. So the next step here, we're gonna add some drums. First things first, in your Ableton project, there's something called the selection tool, and you can just click and drag it. Now, if I go up to the top taskbar and click what looks like this little loop button, the only section of the song that's gonna play is our selection here. So for your drums, start with a MIDI track. Ableton has a lot of preset sounds, but today I want to use a custom lo-fi pack that I have, which by the way is a free sample pack you can get online. It's called Cymatics. I'm not sponsored. You want to put a drum rack onto your MIDI here, and this is going to allow us to drag our own samples. So I'm going to come to kicks. So let's pick one. Okay, so we found our kick. Let's go ahead and get a snare. And lo-fi typically has snares that aren't too in your face like an 80s snare. I'm looking for something that sounds kind of low key and fits the vibe. Yeah, here we go. So we have the quantize feature, which if you're in a selection here, hit Command A to select everything, and then Command U. And that's basically gonna lock everything that you played to the grid. So if you're terrible at playing drums like me, you can adjust the timing afterwards. Normally, I like to take the drum rack and then separate them by elements. Kick, snare, hi-hat. Okay, so I just selected all those and hit Command G, which makes a group, and this is gonna make mixing way easier later on. So now we have the main loop for the song, and up next, I'm gonna focus on the arrangement. I think it'd be really cool if we had two sections to the song, where the first section of the song is before you've forgiven this person. The second part of the song is after forgiveness, and things sound cheerier, more delightful, because things are always better after you make up with that person. So I'm gonna spend a decent amount of time doing this, and you should do the same.
6.5 hours later.
Okay, at this point we have two distinct sections of the song, which is just the intro and then the drop. I think it'd be really cool if we had some sort of vocal sample that I was sorry. Off the cuff, that sounds pretty cringe. But we can kind of distort it and hide the message that's in there to create some intrigue. So first thing I'm gonna do is cut off a lot of the information and make it sound like it's coming out of a telephone. So I'm gonna do a high and low pass filter, and it's gonna sound like this. I never really got the chance to say. I'm gonna do what's called pitch bending, and I'm gonna make the voice sound lower than it actually is.
I never really got the chance to say.
And now I'm also going to add a short delay to this to make it sound like I'm speaking over the phone.
I never really got the chance to say.
Okay, at this point, I feel like our pianos are kind of lacking some lo-fi features. So right now, I'm actually going to group them up and call that group piano. On that piano track, I'm going to put what is called an audio effect rack. This is going to allow us to chain multiple plugins together. Cymatics also has this great free plugin called Cymatics Origin. So before it's on, our pianos sound like this. So now I'm going to mess with some of the effects that they have built in. So I think that adds a lot more atmosphere to our track. Okay guys, we have a lot of the main elements of the song. Hang on to your seats because now we're gonna go through and do some mixing techniques to make everything sound really good. Okay, step one, we're gonna come straight to the drums. We're gonna set our kick to be hitting our master fader here at about 12 dB. Great, okay, now we're gonna hit our snare. You don't want your snare to poke out too far past your kick. Cool, and now we're gonna add the hi-hat back in as well. Now we're gonna add an audio effect rack to our drums. We're gonna add an EQ, a glue compressor, and add a saturator. And at the end of all that, we're gonna put a limiter onto it. Okay, I know it looks like things just got complicated, but stick with me, I'm gonna explain everything. So our EQ is our frequency response. Every single sound has a frequency. And this chart is simply just showing where those frequencies are. So to me, I feel like our kick could use a little bit more punch, and a kick has a lot of low end. So I'm gonna boost a little bit of this low end here. You can see that our snare hits right around this 1K mark. So I'm gonna go ahead and boost a little bit of that frequency as well. And our hi-hats are a little bit muted, which is cool for the style, but I wish they had a little bit more hiss to them. So I'm gonna boost our high end. Now for the compressor, it's just going to set our volume more consistent. So what I'm gonna do is set the attack to be 10 and the release to be 1.2. I'm gonna pull down this threshold until it hits about 10 there. And then I'm going to adjust the makeup gain to 10 as well, which is going to make up for the gain that we turned down. Then I'm going to turn the dry wet knob down to 50%. So then our saturator is basically adding some harmonics. This is just going to make the track sound a little bit more interesting. So the limiter at the end of this chain is basically just catching any super loud sounds and getting them a little more consistent. I don't want it to work too hard, and you can see this little yellow zone right here shows how much limiting is actually happening. You can see it's not going far. If I turn this ceiling down, it's a lot more dramatic, and you can hear that change as well. So I'm just going to keep it at the settings it was at. Let's add the bass in. I'm going to cut a little bit of low end off of the bass because I feel like it's a little bit wobbly. I think I'm going to add a little bit here around 800 hertz because that helps people hear bass better on their phones. This mostly sounds good. All that I'm going to do is a little thing I like to call side chaining. And that's what everyone else calls it too. And put a compressor on your track. Now, if you click this little orange arrow here, it's going to open up a new menu of settings. Here, you want to click sidechain and scroll down to select kick. Sidechaining is basically saying anytime that this bass sees a signal from the kick, it's going to duck down the signal from the bass. Really helps that kick land in a nice spot. So let's add our pianos back in. I think our drums could use one more element, maybe a shaker.
Sorry.
One thing I'm noticing that we could do to enhance this mix is put a utility here on our master fader and click the button that says bass mono. This is going to take all of our bass frequencies and keep them right in the center of the mix and clear up some of the signal on the sides. And I think it's time to finally put some production elements in. One of my favorite tricks to do, I'm going to take one of the notes from earlier. Now you want to take the reverb and jack the decay up to like 12 whole seconds. Right click on your track, you're gonna hit freeze track, and then you're gonna flatten it. If we click on the clip and hit R, it's going to reverse the audio. You can now use this as a swell leading up to the main part of your song. This is kind of like if you were leading up to go and forgive that person, you might have this building feeling that's coming from inside you. And in context,
I never really got the chance to say that I'm sorry.
So I'm going to go ahead and do that exact same thing, but with a cymbal swell instead. Okay, another production element that I'm going to add that is in a lot of lo-fi tracks are some nature sounds. Let's just maybe turn it down a little bit. This is where I think I want to add at the end of the song, someone just saying, I forgive you, which is kind of a nice sentiment to end on. I forgive you. And let's make it sound really high pitched for some reason. Oh, I like the way that sounds. I'm going to add something that is really going to take this song to the next level. The beginning of the song needs to sound a little bit more laid back, like the idea of forgiving this person is growing in your mind. So let's see if we can also make the song slowly grow up. So how we're going to do that is using something called automation. If you click this little button up here, it's going to open up a whole new window for each of your tracks. We're going to put an EQ under our master track, and then we're going to put on a high pass and low pass filter. So they're going to start really closed and then slowly open up leading up to the drop. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to make the curve something like this to make it more dramatic as we lead up to that last spot. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the other frequency. So now it sounds like this. One other thing that I think would be really cool is if we had some sort of piece that had motion from left to right in the song. I'm actually choosing notes that start far apart and then come close together, almost like the people would. So now I'm going to come here and add what's called an auto pan. go to pitch and modulation, and hit auto pan. This allows you to move the sound from left and right. Just like the sentiment we shared earlier of notes starting far apart and coming together, wouldn't it be cool if the elements started moving very fast and then slowly coming together as well? So let's try that with some automation. If you hit the record button and then move the knobs while the song is playing, that will also record the automation live. So let's try that. Well, congratulations. You now know how to produce a song in less than 24 hours. Good job, you! Hopefully, guys, you pulled something of value from this video, and you can now stream Forgive on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you listen. Thanks for watching, and until next time, peace.
And never really got the chance to say.